Welcome to the MNC Department of Parks and Recreation's virtual New Year, New You Nutrition Workshop Series. Get ready to experience a fun, interactive, and educational session with a certified nutritionist. In this session, you will discover ways to make healthier choices as you set your personal goals to start the new year off right. Be sure to share what you learned during this session with a friend or family member.
Again, welcome and thank you for joining us for our January New Year, New You series. My name is Savannah Nielsen, and I am a Health and Wellness Assistant with the Department of Parks and Recreation. Before we begin, let's go over a few housekeeping items. You should see a microphone icon at the bottom of your screen like you see here on the screen. You will need to click this icon to mute yourself. We would ask that you remain muted to limit any distractions during the program. Next, I want to draw your attention to the camera icon. You will use this to turn your camera off and on. Please be mindful that when your camera is on, all participants joining us this evening will be able to see your screen. You have the option to keep your camera on or turn it off. But remember, we want to minimize distractions throughout the program and keep the focus on the presentation being provided. Next, I would like to show you how to pin a participant. To do this, you will need to click on the Show Participants icon. In the Participants column, select the individual you want to view on your screen, then click or tap the three dots icon to reveal a menu. From the drop-down menu, select Pin for Me. The pin participant becomes a focus in your view and only your view, regardless of the speaker. To unpin, repeat these 3 steps and select Unpin. Repeat the same process to pin an additional participant. Please note, if you're on a web browser, the PowerPoint presentation will be in a smaller window at the top or bottom of your screen. Next, I would like to draw your attention to another Teams feature. You can also turn on live closed captions during the meeting. To do this, you will click on the 3 dots for more options. Then you can scroll down and find the option that says Turn on Live Captions. Then you will start to see captions at the bottom of your screen. You may choose to turn this feature on if needed. The last icon I want to tell you about is the chat icon. This will allow you to ask questions throughout the program. To type a question, you will just click on the icon, like the one you see here on the screen, to bring up the chat box, and it should take you to what you see on the next slide. Once you see the chat box, as you see on the screen here, there will be a space for you to type your question in. Hit enter and we will see your question on the screen. Please ask your questions throughout the program and there will be time at the end to answer your questions. We're looking forward to a great discussion. Also, before we get started, we recommend grabbing a pen and paper for you to take notes throughout the session. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our trained professional for the evening. Elena Gore is a registered dietitian and licensed dietitian nutritionist with a certificate of training in adult and pediatric weight management. She received her BA in anthropology, BS in biology, and Master of Public Health Nutrition from University of North Carolina. She worked as a clinical dietitian for 5 years and currently serves the DMV community as a nutrition specialist for Giant Food. She believes nutrition is about balance, not perfection. Elena hopes to inspire others to make every eating experience an adventure and making healthful choices and trying something new. Welcome, Elena.
Hello, everyone. How are you today? Like she said, thank you for that introduction. I am Elena. I am a nutritionist with Giant, and I am going to be presenting today. We're going to be talking about a lot of things. So I'm going to start us off by sharing my screen and give you a nice introduction to how this is going to go. So, yes, let's do. All right. So while this is uploading, I'm going to say welcome to 4 Weeks to Wellness. So that's going to be the name of this program that we do. So there's going to be a total of 4 sessions. And I get really excited about 4 Weeks to Wellness because I get to talk to you guys. You guys get to interact with me. So there'll be a lot of questions that I'm going to throw out there and ask. There's going to be some things I want you guys to take notes on. And they're going to be questions about yourself, but I just want you to write them down so that you can remember them. So 4 Weeks to Wellness, today we're going to talk about goal setting and MyPlate. So some of you may have heard about MyPlate before and you may have set goals before, but we're going to talk about that in the whole scope of nutrition. So this is one session of 4, and this is going to give us our start. This is a very personal session. It is about you, what you think, what you like. So while I'm going to talk and offer like bits of advice and everything, I want everyone to feel welcome to join in the chat. If you want to say something out loud, you can unmute yourself, ask me questions, or either write them down for yourself for later. So again, remember, this is about you. This is about your journey and starting your journey today with me, or continuing a journey that you already started, especially since it's the new year, right? So I forgot to say Happy New Year to everyone. And with this new year, a lot of people make New Year's resolutions. And the most common New Year's resolutions are to exercise more and to eat healthier. And so I'm here to help you do both if that's your goal. And if it's not your goal, we'll get into that a little bit today. So if there are any questions, again, remember throughout, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll try to read the chat as much as I can, or also unmute yourselves and just ask questions. All right, so just really quick, what our whole overall program objectives are is that I want you guys to be able to identify health and wellness goals for yourself and develop action plans that will help you meet whatever goals those are. I want you to also learn how to select foods that meet your preferences as well as MyPlate guidelines, which sometimes those don't always line up, which we'll get into later. And then also I want you guys to have a better understanding of how food and lifestyle factors affect your overall health and well-being. So some of this information you're going to know, some of this information may be new for you, and sometimes it's just a matter of hearing it again and putting it into perspective. So that's what I'm hoping to do today. So let's start off with number one, what is healthy? So somebody can type it in the chat, or you guys can just write it on your paper if you have it. But what do you consider quote unquote healthy? So we receive a lot of messages about this, and there's always some new products out there. So if you guys want to put that in, I see some people typing, so I'll give you some seconds on that. But or you can put in what some of your new IT products are when it comes to healthy if you want. But the thing to remember is that you've got a lot of messaging around the word healthy for a long time. So it can mean different things to different people. So again, write it down, put it in the chat, or say it out loud. And let's make sure there we go. So all right, I see starts as a mindset and then becomes physical. That's a great one. I love that. So yes, healthy means so many different things. We immediately think of food or healthy foods, and we think of all these different things, but it is a mindset. It definitely starts at making different choices that are nourishing to your body, nourishing to your mind. Yes, I hear good number, good weight. So these all mean healthy, intentional choices. That's a great one as well. Absolutely. So there's always this thing we talk about in nutrition, and we start off when we say the health halo effect, right? So someone says something is healthy, and then it becomes this ultimate goal for everyone, which means if it's natural, it's best for you. If it's organic, it's the best out there. Gluten-free is what helps you lose weight. A calorie-free burger, don't do GMOs. There's always a lot of messages, and make sure you diet if you want to lose weight, right? These are the things that we hear. And when we hear it, then we think that that is the goal we have to reach. And now it becomes this halo. It is the angelic sounds of everything that we're supposed to know and do. And so we want to be careful with that, because healthy is never the same. Just as Crystal has, or I think it's Crystal has said. So the thing we want to think about is we always want to choose a strategy when it comes to being healthy, no matter what. Anything you do in life, you want to choose a strategy. You want to go about it a good way. And we also want to think about, even if we are trying to reach this new diet or this new message that we believe in, We only want to try to work on 1 to 2 things when we're first starting out in our idea phase. Why? Because if we try to make these huge changes in a short period of time, we're likely to potentially fail, but we also are likely to potentially set ourselves up for failure. So it's one thing to fail in the world. We're all going to fail at something, but we don't want to set ourselves up that way. So we're going to work on 1 to 2 things. We're going to choose this strategy. And remember, if you don't remember anything else from this session, small changes work. Small changes, okay? So our goal is to help you do you. Whatever doing you is, that's what we want you to do. So small changes to start us off. Now, the reason why we want to go small is because we have to remember that change takes time, and there's so many factors involved when it comes to change. So most of the things that happen, such as high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, pain, even cancers, these are not things that happen overnight. They didn't happen yesterday. Therefore, we can't treat them like we can fix them tomorrow. All right? They're not going to change in a day. They're probably not even going to change in a month. And some of it can change, but the real reason that we have to think about this is that our body is a really, really good adapter to new environments, but it needs that time to be fully adapted. So it takes your body about 3 months to really, really trust you when it comes to a change. If you say, I'm going to eat better, it'll say, I don't believe you until about 3 months of you eating better. And so remember that trusting you and trusting yourself is going to take time. So give your body that same courtesy to know that it wants to know that you're going to develop a pattern and that you're going to stick to it. So the key is always going to be consistency. All right. When we talk about health, as a nutritionist, I'm talking about food, eating foods that are nutrient dense. I'm talking about moving and getting exercising, and I'm talking about hydration and staying hydrated. But even in talking about those things, I have to take into account that we all have different behaviors, we have different characteristics and different pre-existing conditions that can affect our results. So remember, it is about you. Okay, so smoking, physical activity, stress, alcohol, these are things we can impact. Definitely. We can work them into our plan. We can work them into our goal. But our genders, we can't help. Our family history, our ethnicity, these are characteristics that we were born with. We can't always fight genetics. Okay. And then some conditions we know can be made better or worse with the choices that we make. But some conditions we also can't fight or help particularly well or prevent completely. But today we're going to talk about the things that you can do. And when we talk about small changes, we can also talk about a lot of plans that include smaller 4-letter words. We're talking work, 4-letter word, things that we have to do, plan, simple 4-letter word, harder to do than it is to say, right? Cook, fail, move. There's so many simple things that we can do, simple words that we can do that are all going to impact how we get to our version of healthy. All right. So the only thing I want you guys to get from this, and rest, I do see that, is that diet is a word we don't like to use too much. But if you hear me refer to diet, it means what you're eating on your plate. It is not about what you're taking away. It's not about, these fad diets. It's just about what's on your plate. But dieting or taking away, as we know, that's not something I love to promote. And that's not always what I think is the best when we're on health and wellness goals, because everyone doesn't want to diet. Everyone doesn't want the same goal. All right, remember, small changes work best. So this is where we get to the part where you're going to write something down for you, your eyes alone, you, yourself, and you. So we want to know, what are your goals and what is your why? All right. What is your why? Sounds kind of weird. So when we talk about health and wellness goals, there's a lot of things we see. So if we want to get down to a certain weight, if we want to, eat more vegetables, we see these things. But are these goals that you're doing for yourself? And do these goals contribute to your why you're doing it in the first place? So what is your motivating factor for having a health and wellness goal? Is it something that you can hang on to? To give you an example, I had a client that was gaining a lot of weight really, really fast, and they had no problem gaining the weight as far as, whether they should stay a certain weight or how it made them look. But they started to notice that they didn't feel well. And when they weren't feeling well, they couldn't play with their grandchildren anymore. And they loved playing with their grandchildren, started out really active. And with this weight gain, they were no longer able to do that. So when this client was setting their goals, their why and their motivation factor was to be more mobile and active with their grandchildren. And because that is something very personal to them, they were able to stick with it a lot better and a lot easier than just to say, I'm going to lose weight because someone else told me to, or someone told me I was big, or someone else. So remember, it has to be really, really personal. And it doesn't have to be surrounding weight or nutrition, because healthy living is about a lot of different things. So when you're writing down, we're going to go over writing down your goals, but you need to remember, what is your why? What's your motivating factor to set a goal in the first place? So when we talk about goal setting, we're going to today talk about you writing down a health related goal. All right. So there's goals. We can use the SMART method. Some of you may have seen it before in work and other places: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So SMART is that acronym that we use when it comes to goal setting. And so we want to write down one health related goal today before the end of this session. If you need a little bit more time, that is fine. But just think about why you want something, and think about a goal that'll help you either achieve that why, get to that why, or journey toward that why. So goals have to be practical. They kind of have to be a little bit / a lot of bit more specific. So a goal to say, for example, I want to be healthier. That's not specific enough. I don't know what that means to you. I don't know what that all entails. So when we think about goals, let's make it specific. Let's set a time frame on it. Let's be realistic when we set this time frame, and then let's develop a plan to get there. So an example would be, I want to eat more vegetables. Well, that's kind of specific, but it doesn't have a time on it. It's definitely realistic. I don't know if we can plan around it. But if I were to say, I would like to eat or add vegetables to my dinner every day for the next 3 weeks, that is a goal that I know exactly what to do. I know exactly when to do it. And it becomes very realistic to just add vegetables to each dinner meal. That's something that is easily done. And that's something I can handle, especially this far into or this early into the new year. So a goal, when we think about it, is specific, timely, measurable, attainable. So think about, how often will you do it, and how will you make it easy for yourself? So eating more vegetables, then starting now. Or measurable and attainable, so I will always have a half a plate of vegetables. Or a meal, I'm going to set up a meal plan so that I can include vegetables in each meal based on my meal plan. You can also think about things like, I'm going to prepare my vegetables ahead of time so it makes it easier for me to cook them. So these are things that are timely, specific. You want to eat more vegetables. You want to start today. You want to start now. And how you're going to make that happen is a lot of different things. You can do half a plate, or you can add them to your meal plan. So you just want to do maybe one of those things as one goal, but these are specific. All right. And so when we think about being realistic, we also have to think about obstacles that may come. So if I want to have a half a plate of vegetables every day, but yet I don't purchase vegetables when I go to the grocery store, then that's going to make it really, really difficult for me to have a half a plate of veggies. So maybe in order to have that, I know I also need to go to the grocery store and buy vegetables weekly, or make sure I include half of my cart as vegetables so that I can help myself reach this goal. What if there's another example here? So if you have fresh vegetables and you say you're going to use them, but they go bad before you get to them. Well, because you know that that's been a barrier up until this point, maybe you go and you buy frozen. And then if you buy frozen, you can keep it for longer, and then that helps you to reach your goal. Okay, so it sounds like a lot, but essentially you're going to do something specific. You're going to put a time frame on it, and you're going to make it measurable and attainable, something that makes sense to you for your life. And then make sure you think about those obstacles that could come to make it more realistic or less realistic for you. And if there are a lot of obstacles, go ahead and solve some of those too. So write that down, think about that. And I like to give a moment now, but you guys will have time after this session, is that you can also write down what you're aiming for in a general sense, and you can take more time on your own time to make it specific or make it into SMART, into the SMART acronym. So if you know you want to lose weight, you can jot that down now, and then you can go back and make it specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. This is another example. So I will work out 2 times a week, and I want to do it by February 15th. So today is January 5th, so we know the deadline. So now I'm going to schedule each day that I'm going to work out on the calendar, and I'm going to carry my workout clothes with me everywhere I go so that I don't always have to run back home or risk not being able to do it. So realistically, maybe a gym membership is too costly. So then I have to think about what's a way that I can work out that doesn't cost me that much or as much as a gym membership. Or maybe I don't have time to work out because when I'm working out, I'll miss time with my family. So a way to solve that could be find activities that include them. Maybe not every activity, but maybe some more activities. And of course, my go-to is a good dance party, but that's just me. But again, these are examples of how you're making a goal specific, timely, measurable, attainable, and you're also making it realistic so that you're addressing those obstacles that could come your way. Okay? So that is going to be your first, I call it an assignment. We do start out assignments with writing down your first health related goal. It could be anything from nutrition to hydration to exercise to mental health or emotional health. There's so many areas. So you think about it, and you want to have at least one SMART goal by the next time that we meet. And if you need any help with that, you can always email me, and we can talk it out if you need to as well. The second thing I'm going to have you guys do, so write this down, is that you want to write down everything that you ate and drank yesterday. So if you don't remember, you can always pick any day that you'd like to pick. So if it's not yesterday, you could pick the day before, or you could pick today if you'd like, if you're done eating for the night. But I want you to write down everything that you ate and drank either yesterday, today, or the day before. I will let you guys pick. All right. Now you'll have to think about this for a bit. So for time's sake, just write this down, like write down that, hey, I need to write down everything that I ate and drank. And again, we will talk about this in our next session. A bit of that, where each day you write down what it is that you ate. You do not have to judge yourself. You don't have to omit because you think it's bad. Include everything that you can remember and be as specific as you can be. So if you know that you had 2 bowls of cereal, try to estimate what that looks like. Or if you know you had a half a plate of salad, is that like a cup? Is that like a half a cup? Try to put some measurements down if you can. If you can't, that's perfectly fine. But try to give it some sort of measurement. Like, I had a whole, I had a McDonald's Happy Meal. I think they still do those. I'm not sure. But you can write those down. There is no shame. There's no guilt. There is no, I didn't eat enough of this. I didn't eat enough of that. You are not there to judge yourself. You're just there to take notes and observe. So again, today, yesterday, or the day before, and we will talk about this next week. So I am going to transition into healthy living, a little bit away from goal setting. So today is our intro. We're going to write these things down. We're going to work on having SMART goals, and then we can thread those out a little bit later in one of our next sessions. Does anyone have any questions or concerns before we move on to the next part of our presentation? Okay, perfect. If you do have a question, throw it into the chat. I'll still be looking at it. And then we're going to go into healthy living, because today is about goal setting, but it's also about learning about MyPlate. So before we get to MyPlate, I want to talk to you a little bit about healthy living in general. So if you've had any type of session with us before, you've probably heard some of these things before, but it is important to remember, especially when starting this new year, the 5 pillars of healthy living. So I'm a part of this healthy living team, and this is what we think about all the time. So we think about nutrition, we think about physical activity, we think about physical health, we think about emotional health, and also personal environment. These are the 5 pillars. Nutrition is about how you fill up your plate and what you're putting into your body. So is it balanced? Is it nutrient dense? Are you giving yourself the things that your body wants, like a nice treat from time to time? So it's going to talk about food and putting that food in there, putting different items into your body and how it nourishes your body. Physical activity or movement. When we're talking about healthy living, you have to move. Your body is designed to move. It wants to run. It wants to walk. It wants to be upright. It wants to stand. There's so many movements that you can do, and every bit of movement counts. So it's important when we talk about healthy living that we're not just talking about food, but we're talking about how much we move our body. We want to aim for 30 minutes a day, 5 times a day, or 5 days a week, or 150 minutes a week. And that's just the bare minimum that we want to aim for to keep a healthy lifestyle. But even if we can't keep that up, remember that every form of movement counts. Physical health is talking about a lot of numbers. So this is not just the numbers on the scale. This is blood pressure readings, cholesterol, A1Cs, doctor visits, all these lab values that they can get for you, all your numbers that count and tell us your health status. Again, this is not for judgment purposes. This is not for anything other than knowing your status and keeping those up to date and monitoring those. Sometimes it's hard to go to the doctor, especially since COVID. There's a lot of fear surrounding doctors. There's a lot of distrust surrounding doctor visits sometimes. But remember that you need to keep up with vaccinations. And there's so many different things that we can do to contribute to our health and our physical health, keeping our physical health status the way where we want it to be. Emotional health. So people don't talk enough about emotional health, but it's just as important as your physical health. What stresses you out? Do you have great mechanisms to de-stress? Do you use food to cope with your emotional stress or traumas? So there's so many things that go into emotional health, and we want to think about ways to protect our emotional health, because when our emotional health is off, it can throw off our physical health, it could throw off our mental acuity, it could throw off our nutrition. So it's important to keep all these things in balance and practice self-care. So that's a lot of emotional health. And then last but not least, personal environment or homekeeping. So health is not just inside out, it's also an outside in process. So keeping your environment clean or keeping things organized, different things like budgeting, all these different things that help keep us in order, help keep the chaos down, can be really, really good for our health. Okay, so you can always do like an afternoon cleaning session. Someone always asks me, like, how do you feel after you folded all the laundry and put everything away? You just feel so accomplished, like things aren't all over the place, your clothes are all there. That can give you that really, really good sense of accomplishment and purpose in having done something today. So this definitely contributes to the domino effect that is our health. Our personal environment can impact our emotional health or our physical health. Limit physical activity. So those are the 5 pillars. And today we are going to focus on nutrition. So MyPlate is the nutritional part of this. So as you see, we do go over tips quite a bit. We always have like 7 easy tips. And so one of our first tips that we talk about in healthy living is eating a balanced plate. So MyPlate is the USDA's visual representation of what a healthy diet looks like. So the reason why we love this model is because it's very in real time and it's very easy for me to see what's good for me, when I'm making my plate in real time. So if I've cooked this meal and I have rice and I have chicken and I have broccoli and maybe some green beans and then there's a salad on the side and then there's some potatoes somewhere. If I have all these different choices, especially I'm starting to think about Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving dinner, which were both so delicious, but I had so many choices. So when I'm putting it on my plate, that's going to directly affect what goes into my body right then and there. So when we break this down, we see protein is in this 1/4 of the plate, grains is in this other quarter of the plate, and then half of the plate is fruits and vegetables. All right. So doing this is considered balance. It helps with portion control as well as making sure we're getting quite a few nutrients that we're going to need. And so a lot of Americans, we need more of the nutrients that we get from fruits and vegetables. So let's talk about that half a plate. So this is our important half a plate, not because the other nutrients aren't important, but it's because most Americans, we get plenty of grains and carbohydrates in our diet, and we get plenty of protein in our diet. But what we tend to be missing is the rainbow of fruits and vegetables. All right. So each rainbow color. So when you think about this whole plethora of fruits and vegetables, you see red, you see purple, you see blue, you see orange, you see yellow. Each color is a different phytonutrient that provides antioxidants and other nutrients that we need to survive and help our bodies function well. So this is vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E. There's so many different things that are in these different colors. And so eating the rainbow is the best way to make sure that you're getting all the nutrients that you need, especially from diet. So you want to aim for variety and you want to eat the rainbow in general. So per day, you want about 2 cups of fruits and you want about 2.5 cups of vegetables. And what's really important is to remember is that fresh, frozen, and canned all count toward produce. So canned can get a bad rep, but we love canned. When we're thinking about canned, there's some things we want to think about a little bit more than we have to think about with fresh, but it can be made really, really easy. So what I'm gonna do is, oh, well, let me say this again. So for those of you that have diabetes or have family members with diabetes, the MyPlate is a little different. So as you can tell, for the general public, the USDA MyPlate is half plate fruits and vegetables. When we switch to the diabetes plate method, instead of the half a plate being fruits and vegetables, we want half a plate of non-starchy vegetables. And that is because fruit naturally contains sugar and carbohydrates in them. That is, eventually turns to sugar in our bodies. So as you can see in the diabetes MyPlate, the fruit, which is in the shape of a pear in this particular diagram, is in the grains or carbohydrate foods section. So instead of it being that grain only, it is called the carbohydrate foods. So here's a good representation of that. You want to go half a plate non-starchy vegetables if you are battling prediabetes or diabetes, in addition to other things. All right. So here is our discussion portion. So again, I know it's different on this platform, so feel free to put the answer to these into the chat or unmute yourself so that you can answer them. And I'm just going to go in order. So if you guys could just type in or say, or even just write down, what are some of your favorite fruits and vegetables? I see beets. Are there any other there we go. I see broccoli, oranges, pears. Yes, and yes, yes, and yes. Some more broccoli. I love this. I bet you there are no kids on this platform. You remember how hard it was to get kids to eat broccoli? My goodness, you guys are great. Fried cabbage. I don't know if I've had fried cabbage before. That sounds yummy. Oh man. I'm surprised beets was one of the first one. I loved beets as a kid. I was like the only person I knew who loved beets. Tomato cucumber salad. Yes, that is delicious. Absolutely. So these are great. I love these. So there's so many fruits and vegetables. There's so many things like tomatoes. Like, tomatoes are technically a fruit, but we always put them in the vegetables. I see blueberries, kiwi, pomegranate. Yes to pomegranate. Pickled beets. Yes, I'm a southerner. We pickle everything. Yes, pickled beets. Yes, kiwi, but yes. Okay, guys, I love these. These are all great fruits and vegetables. And the reason I ask people their favorites is because I'm always surprised by the answer, right? So we always see fruits and vegetables. We immediately think of an apple, a banana, and an orange. But what's surprising is like no one put in apples immediately, right? We all know apples are great, and I could eat an apple literally every day. But there's so many other favorites. There's so many varieties, and for those of you, you may not have even thought of beets, and beets is a great one, an absolute great one. Lots of phytonutrients, antioxidants in those. So very good. So my second question is going to be for your fruits and vegetables. So I'll start with vegetables actually. So for your vegetables, how do you like to prepare or cook them? So someone already said fried cabbage. What are other ways you like to cook your vegetables specifically? And while I'm waiting a little, and put it in the chat, and while I'm waiting a little bit, I will tell you a quick story. So I grew up a Southerner, and if you don't know how Southerners cook our vegetables, we cook our vegetables. We boil them down, we throw meat into them, and they are very soft and very overcooked for the most part. Very well done, I will say. And so I did not like vegetables growing up. And then when I became an adult, like someone put in here, sauteing in olive oil happened to be one of my favorite ways to actually cook them, steaming them, excellent. And I learned that I actually do like vegetables. I just don't like them when they're very, very boiled and very, very soft. I like my vegetables firm. And so when they're sauteed in olive oil, a little garlic, and some onions, it's so excellent to me. So it turns out I really love vegetables, but I just didn't know I didn't like them until I was an adult because, I just don't like them the way a lot of Southerners do it. Oven roasted, my favorite. Oh my gosh, I'm such a lazy cook. So oven roasted vegetables are by far my favorite. And a smoothie, I love that. Putting vegetables in your smoothie. Yes. Yes, put some vegetables in there. Hide the flavor of some of those things we don't like as much. That's what I love to do. That's great. So there's so many ways that you can prepare your vegetables and even your fruits. And the reason I didn't ask it as much about fruits is because a lot of times we throw fruits into other things and they're usually in their ripe form, or either we cook them like when we cook them in a pie, but we know that we can bake them in other things. But fruits are usually something that a lot of us eat ripe or we eat in other things. So we can have fruit a lot as a snack. We can have fruit in a lot of different ways. And one of the tricks to fruits is going to be do what you can, but maybe for some of them, try to keep the skin on. And then that can give you a lot of extra fiber. But there's also many, many ways to prepare fruits as well. And then last but not least, is there a fruit or vegetable that you always wanted to try? So I asked this because as we move toward this kind of plant-based thing that's going on. It's like plant-based eating and purchasing is just sweeping everyone. And I love it. I absolutely love focusing on plants. But we learn about a lot of fruits that either we didn't grow up eating or fruits that we've never heard of and we don't know anything about them, like jackfruit, or someone said mangoes. I didn't have mangoes till I was close to an adult as well. Um, Yes. Do you have to watch the sugar in fruit? We do, especially if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, you have to watch the sugar in fruit because it can increase your blood sugar. But if you don't have diabetes or pre-diabetes, then the natural sugars in fruit are fine for you. They're good for you. What we want to be careful about is added sugar. So fruits are naturally sweet, and in a lot of products, such as some canned products, there may be added sugar to it, and then that can be intense, and then that can be detrimental to our health, mostly because it tends to add calories and contribute to obesity. But if you have a genetic predisposition for diabetes or prediabetes, it can also contribute to that. So, yes. So think about if for whatever reason you eat fruits and vegetables or you stopped eating fruits and vegetables, one thing I always like to encourage people to do is try something new. So think about a fruit or vegetable that you always wanted to try. Or if you go into the fruit and vegetable aisle and you see some fruit you've never heard of sitting there, maybe purchase it or think about it, get a frozen version, and then look up a good way to cook it and see if that's something you like. Look up ways that people have it. I love trying new things, and I always encourage that for people when we're trying to figure out how to get these nutrients in. Don't be afraid to go with those that you know that you love, and maybe even trying something new if you want to shake it up. Bok choy, love it. That's a great one. All right. So, when we say, a lot of times you'll see at Giant, we have these nutritionist picks. And so just me simply talking about fresh and frozen options for fruits and veggies, I like ready to eat snackable vegetables. So if you look at like a bag of peppers or you look at these pre-cut vegetables, those are some of my favorite. These bagged Brussels sprouts, they're really easy, ready to go. You just kind of take them out of the bag, cut them in half, and you can toss them in the oven once you put a little olive oil, a little garlic on it, a little onion powder if you want. Something really, really easy and simple. So I personally like it when my fruit and my vegetables are kind of cut and ready to go. It makes them easier for me personally to eat, just as a person who likes to eat as conveniently and easily as possible. But usually that runs me a little bit more money. So it's a little bit more costly for them to go ahead and prepare it for me. So a great example would be a pineapple. When you get cut pineapple, you have to pay more for them to do all the cutting. But if you learn how to cut a pineapple, you can buy the whole pineapple and cut it yourself. So I'm the person that buys the pre-cut pineapple. But I also love fresh strawberries. There's so many different fresh versions of things. And then I also love like salads. So it sounds kind of stereotypical because, I'm a nutritionist, but salads are amazing. You can make salads so many different ways. The word salad actually just means a mix of a lot of things together. And so we visualize it as mostly lettuce, and typically it is, and that's fine. But you can do so much with lettuce, and you can put so many vegetables in it. There doesn't have to be a specific proportion. The goal is that lettuce and most fruits and vegetables are made up of a lot of water, so they can be hydrating and they have micronutrients in them. So if you're not a fan of salads, I do say we do have a Build a Better Salad handout, and so that could be great. But what I want to iterate is that we sell a lot of things that you can purchase, as well as any grocery store. Fresh and frozen options are always readily available. There are stir-fry blends. There are steamable blends like the Simply Steamed Carrot and Simply Steamed Antioxidant blend, which is my go-to, the antioxidant blend. There's frozen fruit if you want to make smoothies. So if you know that you're not going to go through or you're not going to finish your fresh fruit and vegetables, you can definitely opt for frozen, keep them in, and throw them in a lot of things. You can substitute that fruit for the ice in smoothies or add both of them. You can even just add frozen fruit to like a drink. If I'm just I want ice and a cold glass of water, I can put frozen fruit in there instead. These salad kits are amazing. So if you want to learn to eat more salads and then you want a little bit more variety with it, you can buy these kits, and there's so many different versions. And so you can use everything in them, or you can substitute or add more to it. So I highly recommend a salad kit. And so these are some fresh and frozen options, just nutritionist picks. There's some Giant brand, there's some non-Giant brand, but I love a good squash. I love a good fresh berry, good banana on the go. And so there's so many different ways to purchase this. Also, some nutritionist picks, which I talked about a little bit earlier, is that we can do canned, frozen, and fresh all count toward our produce or our fruits and vegetable intake for the day. The thing to remember with canned, and the reason they get a bad rep, is because people do add things to cans. Okay, so we can have your fruit in syrup, heavy syrup or light syrup. So that's going to be a lot of added sugar. So when you're buying canned fruits, which are just as healthy for you, look for the ones that are in water or in their own juice. Okay. So if they're in light or heavy syrup, it's okay, but that's where all that added sugar is going to be. So aim for own juice or in water. And that goes for the pouches, and that goes for different things that you're going to eat. The fruit cups as well as canned fruit. So look for those fruit cups in tropical juice or in water. When we talk about vegetables or vegetable medleys that we see a lot, even some soups and different things, we want to look for low salt or no salt added, or low sodium, sometimes it'll say, and then no salt added. When we do this, we can cut the salt and sodium intake for ourselves anywhere from like 10 to 50%. It just depends on the item. So we don't want a lot of added sodium. So you want to look for no salt added or low sodium when you're doing vegetables. There's some vegetables that'll say like no fat or low fat, but a lot of times these, our vegetables don't naturally have a lot of fat in them. But just look out for that, especially with soup. So if you are a soup fan and a canned soup fan, look for, you'll see a lot of higher protein versions, but you want to go for that low salt, low sodium, no salt added version. And this also goes for ready to go vegetables like artichoke hearts that are in oil. So you just want to look at these, make sure that they are not really, really heavy in salt or sodium. And these are great contributors to your fruits and vegetables. All right, so the next part of MyPlate is grains. And so the thing to remember about grains is that you want to choose whole grains when possible, and you want to look for 3 grams of fiber per serving or more. All right, so when we talk about fiber, we hear a whole lot about it. If you've heard me speak before, I will always mention fiber. So fiber is important to remember because fiber helps us feel satisfied. Fiber helps us digest our food. So if you hear that fiber keeps you regular, that is a thing. If anyone's ever taken Metamucil or different things or fiber pills, it helps our digestive system, our digestive tracts. It's for that, but it also helps us with glucose control and cholesterol. And that's because we're absorbing some of it and not absorbing others of it. And I tell people it's like your body's going to work really hard to try to digest some of the fiber, and it's not always going to be successful. So some of that fiber just takes all that gunk out with it, And so we love fiber. We want people to get more fiber in their diets, and whole grains is a great way to do that because they haven't removed the fiber from it. So when you see brown products, like your brown rice or your whole wheat bagels or your brown rice and quinoa or your whole grain breads or whole grain pastas, they're going to be a little bit browner because usually white, when it's refined, like white tortillas and white rice, they have refined it. So they've stripped it of parts of the grain that have all the fiber in it. And so when you opt for brown or when you opt for whole wheat or whole grains, you're getting that fiber from there that a white version of that probably took out. So you definitely want to aim for whole grains. If you're looking on the nutrition label, again, you want to go at 3 grams of fiber per serving. That would be a great source of fiber. So that's why we aim for whole grains, because if we're going to make grains, we know grains, it's going to have carbohydrates in it. It's going to give us those calories, but let's go ahead and get some of that fiber with it to help us digest it, help with weight maintenance, help with cholesterol. So that is going to be your quarter plate grain or your quarter plate grains. You want to go for whole grains. All right. This is also the section where we put in our potatoes. Even though potatoes are a vegetable, they are really, really heavy carbs. So we want to put them on a quarter of the plate when we're doing it. All righty. And last but not least, the other quarter plate is going to be protein. So when we're doing protein, I want you guys to know most of you probably get more than enough protein, right? A lot of Americans are not deficient in protein. We usually eat about double the portion that we need at each meal. And so protein deficiencies are a little bit rare unless there's like a medical situation or condition going on, because there's so much of it in our diet and our diet messaging and our advertising. but the type of protein matters. So we want to opt for lean sources of protein. So lean means it has less fat on it. So this is going to be your poultry, like your chicken and your turkey. This is going to be seafood, eggs, seeds, nuts, beans, and even low fat dairy. That's going to be your lean options. And we're choosing lean because we want less saturated fat. So the fat that is around meat, so that marbling that's around like your red meats and your pork and different things, that's saturated fat. That's the fat that kind of sits in our arteries, that gunk, it gets gunky, leads to strokes, heart attacks, just with clogs and different conditions and heart disease. So we want to opt for the things that have a lot less of that saturated fat in there. And meat, chicken, and poultry is not the only source of protein. So don't forget about your beans. Don't forget about your eggs. Don't forget about your nuts. And don't forget about the low-fat dairy. So there's so many options. And one of the other recommendations that happens from MyPlate is you want to include seafood about twice a week minimally. So if you are a seafood fan, this is great for you. If fish isn't really your thing, maybe there's some seafood options, some shellfish options, or some other fish, like maybe you don't love salmon, but maybe you could like a cod or a mackerel. There's so many different options when it comes to seafood, and seafood can be a little expensive. So maybe you get it on sale and freeze it, or maybe you buy the frozen options. But these have a lot of great omega-3 fatty acids that are great for brain health and great for a lot of other things. So the USDA does recommend it about 2 times a week, barring any allergies. If you are allergic, don't do it, of course. So here are a few picks. So don't forget about that low-fat dairy, that Greek yogurt. I love it. High protein, low fat. So if you get a Greek yogurt, get the non-fat plain. You can also use that as a substitute if something has sour cream in it, or if you need something a little creamy when baking. It's also a great substitute for that. There's also a lot of non-dairy drinks or low-fat dairy drinks that you can have that are higher in protein. You can always opt for your ground meat, such as ground turkey, ground beef, ground pork. You want to aim for the higher percentage, like 90-10, 93-7 lean, and then that can help reduce a lot of that fat there. Do not sleep on the beans. Beans are great. They're easy. They're canned a lot of times, or you can buy them and boil them yourselves. They're easy to add on the go. Beans are a great source of protein, as well as we know that they also help with the digestive tract. They've got some fiber in there. You can get chicken, you can get tuna, like you can get tuna in the packs. You can use canned tuna, eggs. Chicken, you can buy it raw, you can cook it, or get a nice rotisserie chicken on the way out of the door. That's a great go-to for the family. Instead of maybe going somewhere getting some fried chicken somewhere, you can always go in, grab you a nice rotisserie chicken and head home if you need to. So remember, fresh, frozen, and canned all count here. If it's canned, look for low salt. And just remember, you want this on a quarter of your plate. So right now, a lot of our diets, meat is the focus. We're so focused on the meat. And so we want to make this a quarter of our plate. And the last thing I'm going to talk about today, when we talk about MyPlate, because dairy we can talk about another time, but it's usually very essential for kids. But after a certain point, we don't absolutely need dairy, but dairy can be a great source of fat and protein for us. If you are vegan, vegetarian, or thinking about being more plant-based, there's also a lot of different choices. A lot of plant-based and vegan options have improved greatly over the past few years with this trend. So there's vegan cheese. I don't necessarily recommend it, but it does exist. There is a lot of non-meat or meat substitute options. The only thing I will caution everyone on is that even though it may be a meat substitute, it does not mean automatically that it is healthy. So make sure that you're reading those nutrition labels, which we will do nutrition label reading at our next session, because it could still be very high in added sugar, added salt, and other things. So don't assume because it's non-meat that is immediately healthy. All right, but there are a lot of recommendations there. Alrighty, so that is going to end my portion of this for today. That's our first session. Thank you guys for hanging in there and answering the questions. I hope that you try something new between this week and next week, but don't forget to write that one goal, and it's going to be health related. You're going to use that SMART acronym. So it's going to be health, it could be exercise, it could be food, it could be nutrition. We're going to do that. And just know that we also have a series coming up if you want help with that for our New Year, New You series. And we call it Healthier Together. So if you want to register for that here, it's on the screen. These are our topics over the next 5 weeks. So you can tune into that as well. And that can definitely just reinforce a lot of what we're going to be talking about and just give all that to you. Let your friends, your family know it is free to you guys in the community. But we're going to talk a lot about that. So we're going to write our why, we're going to write our goals, and we're also going to write that one day of food that we ate. And we're going to talk about all of that next week. Do I have any questions? All righty. If you think of some, put them in the chat, and then I'm going to hand it back over to you, Savannah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I love how many practical steps you gave. It's not just like, here, go do it on your own. Like, you really walked us through it. So that was great. I do just have a few announcements. If you could unshare your screen, and then we have just an announcement slide that we'll put up for everyone. Thank you. So we want your feedback. If you complete the survey within 24 hours, you will be entered into a drawing for a health and wellness gift bag. And you'll get that evaluation coming up in your email. And also, please join us Thursday, January 12th, for our next nutrition workshop. That's going to be Healthy Store Tour from 6 to 7 p.m., just like today. And then there is also an in-person wellness walk. That's Saturdays of January 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th from 10 to 11 a.m. at Fairwood Community Park. And you can register for this through pgparksdirect.com. And that's all the announcements we have for today. I'll just double check that no questions have come in. All right, awesome. Thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great night.